It is tough. BJ from Board Game Gumbo. I've got my guest Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games here. There's another game I wanted to talk to you about, the one that we had mentioned earlier that Jake and Danielle talk about all the time, and that's Coldwater Crown. Coldwater Crown, there's just not many games out there that have a fishing in the way that you have as a theme. New Bedford does have whaling, but it doesn't have fishing as the theme. I'm curious. You didn't design Coldwater Crown, but obviously you were a big part of the development, I'm assuming?
Right. So the story here is, I mean, Brian Surrey, he designed the Coldwater Crown. I wouldn't say that I was really particularly involved in the development, but I did do some playtesting with him and gave him some feedback as in some of the earlier versions. So I met Brian at Milwaukee Proto Spiel in 2013, I think. And just I played his game. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game Paradox.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, Brian designed Paradox, and he was playtesting a prototype at Milwaukee Proto Spiel. And I was just amazed with the mechanics of it, because Brian, unlike just a lot of kind of new designers, I don't think he'd had anything published at that time. But unlike a lot of other designers, he didn't rely heavily on text in his game. There weren't a lot of cards you had to kind of read, and you had different abilities. You had to kind of figure out what they did. His game was very innovative and interesting with almost zero. The mechanics in Paradox were each person's kind of solving their own kind of puzzle in front of them, and then that interacts with different cards you're picking up that are going to earn you points based on multipliers. It's all about kind of saving the timeline. A really unique game, really unique experience. So I kind of filed that in the back of my head. I hadn't worked with another designer at that point to publish a game. Anyways, I kind of kept up with Brian. I interviewed him for my website at the time. I was doing interviews with designers. And then one day he posted something on Twitter, just a picture of this kind of rondelle mechanic with these discs with numbers on them. And it looked unique to me because I hadn't seen a lot of prototypes that had done something like that at that point. And so I said, hey, can we check it out? He was local. I was living in Southern Illinois at the time, and he was living in the St. Louis area. So we were pretty close. So we got together, and I played what was then something with a totally different theme. But the core mechanics were sort of there. I gave him some feedback. He went back, worked on it some more, did some more playtesting. We met again, I think, or talked some more. He gave me a prototype to play. I played it on my end. And then one day he said, "Do you like fishing?" And he sent me a text and he had a picture of this game, and he put together this prototype, and it was essentially the same game, but then with a lot of, everything was kind of streamlined to be about fishing. And since I'd played the original game, I knew that there's probably a really good gameplay there. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'm interested in fishing because I want games with new themes, just like we were talking about earlier. Like, I kind of get tired of the same old themes that are reused, and fishing hadn't really been done. And so we met up again, played what is now, I mean, at that point, it was almost completely done. So there wasn't a lot of development work I had to do at that point, besides just figuring out some of the component issues and the artwork issues, and how to kind of make it smoother from that standpoint. But so Brian, I'm really glad that I was able to maintain kind of that relationship with him, and he's been fantastic to work with. And he has other designs coming out as well that I've played, got an opportunity to try. So Coldwater Crown, even say again.
I said he's up and coming. It sounds like, man.
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think you'll see more stuff from him soon. He really knows what he's doing. He playtests really hard, and he knows how to fix things, and he knows how to focus on what's important in a game. And it's really kind of fun to watch him work and to see what he comes up with. And he designs quickly too, so which is really amazing.
When he brought out Coldwater Crown, did it have did it already have the capability to be expanded? In other words, did he already have some ideas, or is that something that you went back and said, hey, let's revisit this game?
Actually the C. So the C expansion is coming to Kickstarter probably in June. We're gonna. That's my goal right now.
Sure.
Yeah, the C expansion. He designed it almost immediately after he designed the base game. So it's been around in our minds for a while to do. But Coldwater Crown itself is a complete game. I mean, and it's been getting a lot of great reviews as a standalone game, as the base game, but Brian and I, in the back of our heads, has been like, we love the sea. It's like, we love this expansion. We really want to do it because it just adds a really great extra dimension to the game. So we've been looking forward to it. I just hadn't had the time to do it until now. So now we're getting the artwork put together. You can go on Board Game Geek and give us a thumbs up on the cover image. The cover is going to just expand the base game cover. So when you set both boxes next side by side, they're going to match up, and you're going to just see one continuous image.
Well, I like that.
So go on Board Game Geek and like that, and that'll be helpful for us.
Jeremy mentioned something. One of the things that people have raved about when they talk about Coldwater Crown, the original game, is the artwork from Beth Sobel. And he said, Jeremy says, can't wait for this expansion. Is Beth on board for the art? And I think he's talking about the sea. Oh, great. So it'll be how is it working with Beth? They tell me that a lot of the working with her is done all by email, by internet, by phone calls. What's your relationship with Beth? Yeah,
that sounds right to me. I mean, I just contacted her through email. I think it was almost 2 years ago now, before we got started working on Coldwater Crown, and she's really great to work with. Has always been really great with communication. Obviously, her artwork is fantastic. She obviously is getting more and more recognition these days, and more attention, and getting picked up by more and more authors. I probably won't be able to afford her, at some point. But I was at the time.
She is very distinctive with her art. I mean, you almost she's one of those artists that when you see her work, you go, "Oh yeah, that's a Beth design."
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that they look the same at all. In fact, they don't. I mean, Coldwater Crown doesn't look like viticulture, but you when you put them together, you can see kind of the same hand there.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you find her? I mean, what drew you? Because it sounds like when Coldwater Crown came out, she was still kind of relatively unknown, right?
I guess so. I mean, she wasn't relatively unknown as far as I was concerned. I had paid attention to Lanterns. She did the illustration for Lanterns, which was really, really popular, and viticulture I was familiar with, because was familiar with Stonemaier Games and the work that they were doing. So yeah, there was a couple different artists we were looking at for Coldwater Crown. I wasn't actually sure at the time whether or not we wanted to go with more kind of the realistic look that she does. Okay. But she did a couple at the time. She did a couple samples of what it might look like, and it turns out that she was a perfect fit for it, I think. The first time she did a fish, she did an illustration for a fish, I was completely sold on it. I commissioned her for just one fish, and to see what that would look like, and I was like, she really nailed it. And it's been fun to work with her. I hope I get the chance to work with her in the future for other projects, but we'll see. For now, I'm just glad that we were able to get her for the expansion to Coldwater Crown, because it wouldn't be the same if she didn't do the artwork for the expansion. Like I said, with the boxes gonna be matched up, like I couldn't have a different artist do it like that. And then the Coldwater Crown, the C is going to come with a C board, and that's going to match up and line up with the regular board as well. So it all has to kind of be the same art style. And if it wasn't, it really wouldn't kind of have the same effect. So.
Yeah, that brings a question to my mind. So you called Coldwater Crown. Basically, it's self-contained. It's a game that you can play. It doesn't need expansions. What does the C bring to it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about how the gameplay works for people who may not be familiar with it. But
sure.
Coldwater Crown is a set collection game, and it's a worker placement game. The kind of the unique hook to the worker placement is you're always placing your worker, and it's two-sided. So there's a powerful side, and then there's a less powerful side. You're placing your worker, and wherever you place it, that lets you manipulate tackle bait in your tackle box. And as you're manipulating your bait, that's how you arrive at catching a fish. There's some of the fish that are on the screen there. And then the second part of your turn, so every turn has two steps. The first step is you're placing a worker, you're taking action to manipulate some of that bait. And the second step of your turn is you're picking up a different worker, you're flipping it over, and you're taking action from that worker to manipulate some different bait. And so that kind of one step, two step cast reel mechanic has this really smooth feel to it. And anyways, in the game, you're manipulating the bait in your tackle box whenever you cast the last piece of bait from a particular zone. You can see on the picture there's 4 zones in your tackle box. Whenever you cast the last piece, then you catch a fish. And you catch a fish that relates to the same zone number as the color of bait that you cast last from that zone. So it's really this unique puzzle where you're trying to figure out how you can cast bait in the right order so that the very last color is the one that you need to catch the fish. And then it's kind of made more exciting by the fact that you're racing other players to catch particular fish. So you can beat them to the trophies that are higher in points. So you really have to be engaged the whole time to make sure that the pieces you need in your tackle box are at the right place in the right time so you can beat other players out. So in Coldwater Crown the Sea, what we do is we add another turn action. So in the base game, you can go to port, and when you go to port, you fill up spaces on your tackle box with more bait. Or you can take master angler cards to catch, and those are caught a slightly different way than the other fish. Well, the sea lets you go to port, and then you can move your sea vessel, which is going to be a piece that's going to come in the game. Every player is going to get this special sea vessel. You move that out to the seaboard, and when you're at sea, it makes logical sense that you can't catch fish from the other fishing locations because you're out at sea. You've rented this kind of bigger fishing trawler. And when you're out there, you can only catch the fish that are at sea. Well, those sea fish are kind of more lucrative to catch. Okay. They are bigger, they have heavier weights, and there's a special scoring element to it where it doesn't score the same way as the other fish on the board. But they're also wild in color, so you can use any color you need to catch them. But whenever you're out there, you can't catch the ones back on the mainland. And that's where the strategy really comes in, is how long am I going to stay out at sea working on these sea fish, which are going to get me these really great bonus points when I'm missing out on opportunities to catch the fish that I need for kind of the bulk of my points back at the mainland. Because it costs me
your luck out there to see
a little bit like pushing your luck. I mean, you're making the decision for yourself about how long you want to wait and do that, because so, I mean, I guess you could call it push your luck, but it's really strategic based as far as like you can come back at any time. And it doesn't cost you an action to come back, but it does cost you an action to go out. So that's you have to sacrifice a little bit to be out there. And then we're going to add another piece of tackle, which is going to give players the ability to take a free port action. And then we're also going to add some solo rules for the sea expansion as well. So the solo game for Coldwater Crown has been pretty well received, and then we're going to add some special rules for that. So, and then there's going to be 5 new species of fish as well that come with the game.
So new tackle, new fish, enhancements to the solo game. A lot of stuff going on there. Do you have a time period for the Kickstarter? You talked about June, you said?
Yep, June so far is what the plan is. We'll see if we can hit that.
MSRP on it yet, or still working on that?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
I have a few numbers, but I'm not ready to say anything. Yeah.
Steve says he likes the idea. The boxes will make a Tokaido-style panorama.
Right.
Tokaido is one of his favorite games, by the way.
It's a good game.
And he likes that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So that's Coldwater Crown, The Seas, coming to Kickstarter in June. Is this the end of expansions, or if it does well, could we see some more content?
We'll see.
We'll see. Dennis Hoyle, tough nut to crack.
Sorry. Yeah, no, Brian, I can say this. Brian and I have been working on another game that will probably have a similar, that will may kind of fit the same universe. And that may be coming, that would be coming next before another expansion to Coldwater Crown. So, and then like with any of my games, we got to see how it goes. So if Coldwater Crown the Sea is not particularly well received, then maybe we won't do another one. I'm not sure. I will say this though, as if you are interested in more information about the sea, go to bellwethergames.com/news.
Okay.
And click on the article at the top there, and you can sign up to get an automatic update whenever we launch the Kickstarter.
I have been trying to think of one, and there's the name father, bringing it home, bringing the heat. It's not surprising that a man named Hoyle plays his cards close to the vest. That's why we call him the name father. Hire this man. I keep telling people, hire him. He's going to do your PR for you. He's got a million of those things, Dennis. Oh, there's Dan Cheston coming in from the Filler and Gateway group run by Chuck Yeager. Not that Chuck Yeager, but a very nice Chuck Yeager who runs the Gateway and Filler Games group on Facebook. Dan says, plenty of fish off the coast of Alaska just begging to be hooked.
Well, yeah, actually, Dan, you make a great point. And I had conversations with this. I've had conversations about this with people before about how versatile Coldwater Crown is to being expanded to just different regions. Like Coldwater Crown itself is based on the North Atlantic. The fish are in the North Atlantic. Personally, one that's close to my heart would be like the Northwoods, Boundary Waters, northern Minnesota,
Sure.
Great Lakes. That probably comes from my Midwest background. Like Dan, you just said, Alaska. There's
The Gulf of Mexico.
Right. The Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. So there's different, a lot of different places to go. Kind of like Ticket to Ride. They go over,
All right, BJ from Board Game Gumbo live here with my special guest, Dennis Hoyle from Bellwether Games, talking about his upcoming Kickstarter for Coldwater Crown, the expansion, the seas, and also Mars Open tabletop golf that's coming out. You should have in stores this summer. Isn't that right?
July, probably.
That's great.